because usually the lightning talks I do are 20 minutes. So we're going to go fast. Okay. I believe at the root of a lot of our cybersecurity problems are a lack of investigative thinking and critical thinking, right? If you look around the United States, a lot of these problems could have been prevented by a change in your thinking. So this talk is actually about psychology. So we're going to do a 2-minute exercise first. Don't worry, you don't have to talk to anybody. If I had an exercise where I had to talk to somebody, I'd die. Okay, I don't believe in that. So we're doing a 2-minute exercise, and the exercise is called building observation. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in, guys. I like this. This guy's long hair. I like that. That's good. You're welcome. Merry Christmas. All right. Okay. We're doing a 2-minute exercise. It's not hard. Okay. All we're going to do is kind of loosen up. Get loose a little bit, because we've all been in here all day, so I know what it's like. And then for 2 minutes, and I'm going to time it, we're just going to look around and observe things. We're just going to look around, and I want you to find 2 things that you just noticed that you didn't notice when you first came in here. Okay? So I'm going to start. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Just look around. That's right. I love it. I see people looking around. Ah. All right, 30 seconds. Okay. Good. I love it. People are really looking around. I love it. Okay. 10 seconds. Okay. In your mind, you don't have to say it out loud. What are some things in your mind that you noticed just now that you didn't notice when you walked in here earlier? In your mind. Don't say anything. This is the power of observation, and this is where security actually starts. Looking around and being aware of what's going on. Okay? This is how we're going to build investigative thinking. Okay? Step 1. Okay? Now, in cyber, we use a lot of technical tools to do this, but what about in the real world? Because we know that a lot of these threats are internal threats. Somebody who was just there, who just kind of showed up, right? And have you ever met somebody and you're like, I just don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about meeting them. I feel weird. And I can't figure out why. I just don't feel good about it. That is another power of observation, observing how you feel in the situation or with a certain person. Some people you're just like, their vibe is rancid on this person and I just don't know why. That is your intuition and your observation of things subconsciously that you're not aware of. Okay. So I always say, don't let your emotional vulnerabilities become security vulnerabilities. I'm going to explain how scammers, a lot of cyber scammers, actually dig and use your emotional vulnerabilities to hurt you and mess you up. So let's go. I've been doing this a long time, so in 30 minutes, I can identify what your emotional vulnerability is and how to get at you, right? So if you're someone, for example, if you're someone who overshares, you talk a lot, and it's not in a sanctioned environment. You start oversharing personal information. That displays loneliness, and it displays lack of boundaries. And it makes you open to a scammer. It makes you open to, say, a romance scammer, love scammer, people like that, right? There are certain things about your personality that are going to be displayed from interfacing with you that will show the scammer how they can get at you. Or your mom, or your grandma, or your brother, or your sister, or This is why it's important to build this kind of awareness. Those who get scammed, they're not stupid, okay? But they're usually more emotionally malleable and sensitive than other people. So that's kind of the commonality. You see people getting scammed in huge corporate, you see billionaires, and you see people who are teenagers, who are kids. You see, it's a broad stroke. The only thing in common is not their IQ, It's that they are emotionally open and emotionally sensitive. Okay? Also, another thing, if you're the kind of person who angers easily, you are a treat for a scam. There was a man who is running a trafficking business. Okay, he's running a trafficking business. He's in Europe. Okay. Sometimes, in order to find out information about the person, you engage in something called strategic antagonization. So you're intentionally trying to make them angry. Because when people get angry, they get sloppy and they make mistakes. So what happened with this person in particular was that he was strategically antagonized. He became angry and made a video of himself with these pizza boxes in the video. The pizza boxes gave away the location of him, and he was arrested.
God
so
bless.
What I'm saying is, if you get angry, you will get sloppy because anger is an activating emotion. It's not like sadness. Sadness makes you lay in your bed and do nothing. Anger is like, I gotta do something right now. I'm ticked off. And this is how people get caught. A lot of people, because they're easily angered and manipulated into anger. And additionally, if you're making someone angry, they will drop critical information that they didn't drop before. They'll start showing shit. And usually, it's the one thing that's the puzzle piece is a lot of these people are doing stuff online, they're doing cyber, but we don't know their location because they're disguising themselves too well. If you antagonize them enough, they drop information about that. That's what I'm talking about. So, think about in a society, no one is completely alone. So somebody knows somebody knows somebody knows somebody knows something, right? Somebody knows something. That's how you locate these people who are very complex digitally and cyber with the social network, with the social system. Okay? All right. Let's talk about fear. Okay, I want to talk about fear. Putin had to go into negotiations with Angela Merkel over an economic issue. And he had found out that she's afraid of dogs. So in order to increase his leverage, he brought his dog. Now you can see by her body language that she's uncomfortable. Not at him, but there. Look at it. Look at her body language. Okay? What I'm saying is, people who are highly strategic and they're criminals, they will use your emotional vulnerability that they've heard of to mess with you. How do you know if someone's lying? I'm going to give you a few ideas. Okay, I'm going to talk about linguistics. I'm going to talk about body language. We're going to talk about interrogations. I'm going to go really fast because we've got 30 more minutes. Okay, so what we look for is called incongruencies. Okay, so and I want you to think. There's another exercise, two exercises. Think of a time when someone said something, but their actions displayed the opposite. Okay, there are a lot of these, even in casual lives, not even in security or cyber, but it's like, I did this exercise with college students and they said, my job promised a promotion, didn't get it. No promotion. My friend says, let's hang out all the time, never hangs out. What's up with that, right? You look for those kind of incongruencies. Those are the keystone of investigation. What are these incongruencies? And it works in all investigations, not just crime, but we look at financials, fraud, we look at stuff like that, because if a credit card was used in Tampa, Florida, and then it was used in Seattle, that's an incongruency. There's no way that person can be in the same two places, right? So it doesn't work fundamentally and logically, okay? So my exercise for you for incongruencies, get on a reality show, just watch a reality show, any show. It could be Survivor, it could be Kardashian, it could be any show, okay? Watch what is said and watch what happens, and just write it down in a column. What was said, what happens. And try to practice what are the incongruencies that are happening here. because that's the first key to doing this, is to notice those kind of situations, right? So for cyber-focused crime, for spotting incongruencies, to catch predator and catfish is about identity, right? To catch a predator is about these predators, how they talk, how they interact, and then the interrogation, which you see live. I want you to really watch those and see how these people are interacting, okay? Secondly, for social dynamics, so a lot of people say, man, I really don't get these little social reality shows. That's because some people are not trained to look at social dynamics and understand them. So watch those shows, and I want you to observe in the room, okay? Who's running this team? Who has the power? Who's talking? Who's making things up? Who's telling the truth? What's happening in the broader social dynamic of these shows? And this one's really particularly interesting. This on Showtime. Couples therapy. Look at these dynamics. Who's running who? Who has the power? Who's saying this? What's actually happening? Just observe. Use your observation skill that we just practiced, and just observe these dynamics. That's going to help you out, not just in your job, not just in cyber, because I'll talk about that later, but in your general life, right? When you look around, when you enter a room, can you identify the people that don't like you? Can you identify the people that do like you? These dynamics are incredibly important because no one lives in isolation. Okay? Let's talk about language. Okay? Let's talk about language. There's a few things I want you to look out for. Okay? A lot of companies, people, scammers, fraudsters, they do something called a false choice. Okay? Which means, okay, if you don't do this, I'm gonna die. Okay, that's a false choice, right? Because if choice B is so insanely severe that it's disproportionate, it's a false choice. I'll give you some other examples of false choices. Do you want to accept cookies? You press no, you're volleyed off the website. That's a false choice, right? Because what if you need to use that site to do something? That's a false choice. It's not actually a real choice. So, all right. Okay. Another thing that you have to really watch out for with people trying to attempt some of these scams, especially online, is they're doing a lot of digging for questions. They're trying to get a lot of questions from you, a lot of information from you. They're not giving you anything. And if they do give you anything, it doesn't really make sense what they're giving you, right? They also pair it with deflection. So if you start asking a question, maybe the question's too hard, they're going to deflect it over here. But my tip for you, always, if you have that curious kid in your mind that goes, why, keep that curiosity. Because the more questions they ask, the more questions you ask, the more they're going to get skeeved out, and they're not going to want, you're not going to be vulnerable to this. If someone has good faith, they're happy to answer your questions. And that brings me to the next one. Good faith versus bad faith questions. Sometimes someone will ask you a question to strategically antagonize you, right? So the question in itself innately is offensive, right? They're doing that to make you emotional, right? That's called a bad faith question. Now, a good faith question is, if someone has an honest question about the presentation, absolutely, I'm happy to answer it. But there's a tonality and a recognition of good faith versus bad faith questions. The elections are coming up. I recommend you watch these debates and you look at the questions, okay, that are being volleyed. Because I want you to start recognizing what a bad faith question is and how it's asked. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's talk about cyber. So this is how it all connects. All right. This skill set is very applicable, not just to everything in life, but in a lot of jobs in cyber. For example, jobs that I've been able to work through is I worked for a lot of different banks and a lot of different financial institutions to detect fraud. There are higher level certifications to detect money laundering, false businesses, all this fake stuff. And the thing is, the cyber people are the linchpin to pulling all the data together and getting all the evidence together in these kind of investigations. So, I just want to kind of reiterate, there are certain ways that people communicate and interact with other people when they're actually a covert threat. So I want you to just practice that by being really alert, okay? I did get to an investigation, okay? It was an investigation where there was a woman, she was being harassed by this guy who's actually a tech CTO, honestly. And there were incongruencies. Let me tell you what they are. If someone needs to hide something, that means they know it's bad, right? If I just accidentally went over there and started drinking that wine and I didn't know anything, I would do it publicly. But if I know it's bad, I'm gonna hide behind the desk, right? That's a shame response. They feel shame about what they're doing, so they're gonna, oh. Now, when it got to the investigation, when it got to the trial, this gentleman had called this woman on a no-caller ID to call block 97 times in like 3 hours, okay? Now, let me tell you first off, if you go to Verizon, you can get, it unmasks it in 5 seconds. So if you ever have that problem, it's the same on all mobile carriers. Just go up there, get a report, it will unmask all those anonymous numbers. Secondly, what his defense was is, well, I didn't know. If you didn't know, why did you hide it? It's an incongruency. It doesn't match, okay? Let's talk about something else. Here's an incongruency that actually somebody got let out of prison, right? There was a man, he was imprisoned for killing his girlfriend. They were both in high school, okay? What had happened with the cellular location is they had pinged him around 90 miles away from the woman at the time. Now, he, according to timeline events, only had 21 minutes to get this woman, kill her, and bury her. It's an incongruency. You can't go 90 miles in 21 minutes. He was acquitted, found innocent. So, again, we have to watch for these incongruencies. They are everywhere. So, I encourage you, keep practicing your awareness skills. Go put those reality shows. If you want to practice body language, put them on mute and just look at the body language. Just write it down. Write down what you think is happening. Just look at it. If you want to really analyze the language, put it on the language. Try not to look at the people. Go look the other way. But yeah, this is good practice. And I know we want to clock out, so I'm going to have 10 minutes of Q&A, and then we're clocking out 10 early. Sounds good? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think the difficult part is not recognizing it, but what to do with it. Because, yes, I have these observations, but it's like, when do you call them out, when you don't, when it worked for you, and when it worked against you?
Yeah.
Your strategies, this whole chess game.
Yeah.
This is like a very beginning step.
So I'm going to repeat it just for the camera and the mic. You were saying you've seen incongruencies in people, but you don't know exactly what to do.
No, you know them, but I think I'm saying the difficult question to address is what to do with them.
Yeah.
And sometimes a vulnerability is not a vulnerability until after you've got the negative response. Sometimes it can work for you, like in time, right? If it works against you, then that becomes a vulnerability. But if time works for you, then that becomes an advantage.
Yeah, that makes sense. Addressing the incongruency is going to show you every single thing you need to know. Because let me tell you what's going to happen. 2 things could happen. Person goes, oh, I'm sorry, and they fix their behavior, which is positive. Second thing, person deflects. They said, I didn't do that. I don't know what you're talking about. This is a sign of denial, deflection, and no remorse. That's what we look for in a lot of cases, the no remorse thing. Because if somebody can't take accountability, that's important, right? So, and next question. Please, sir.
What would you recommend to do if you detect an anomaly, but you really aren't sure where it's coming from? And again, this may apply more to the world of electronics and computers, but it can happen in real life. Like you see something, you know it's not right, but it doesn't mean anything. You're like, why did that just happen out of nowhere?
Yeah, he was saying, what if you detect some kind of anomaly, but you don't know where it's coming from? And I think this is a good question. Make sure you're getting really, really curious, right? How we usually do it is we have a line of things. Okay, what's going to be revealed here? What's the next? It's like a quest. It's like a checklist. But what I would say, I don't know as much about the electronics side, but I can say, as we dig deeper into a person who may be an issue with questions, they do reveal themselves by the things they say. They kind of tell on themselves. So, I hope that answers. Thanks.
So kind of going off of what the first question was, what if you do notice, like you have those observations, you notice something to talk about a person, but you fear that there might be repercussions if you actually do something about it.
Right. Okay, I'm going to repeat it just for the mic. What do you do if you know something is off about somebody, but you may have repercussions? You do something. First off, that intuitive feeling you're having, that's really protective. It's really strong. So I want to say that's really good that you're trusting that. Something to know about people who are manipulative and toxic is they always implode on themselves eventually. That's the thing. That's it. That's the absolute truth, because if you put a web around yourself and it's not true, it's going to come down eventually. So you go, okay, well, maybe I can't personally do something, but if someone does come and go, hey, I saw this, you can share what you saw with them, right? But again, a lot of individuals who have these traits, they self-implode, eventually, so.